Okay, let's call the meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock. And we start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. Yep, everybody rise for Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right.
Okay, let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Elahi,
Present?
Councilmember Lawler,
Present.
Councilmember Luthold,
Present.
Vice Mayor Turner,
Present.
Mayor Rogers.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody want to change the orders of the day, or we okay? Seeing none, let's move on. We'll start out with oral communications. We have the...
Is your microphone on? Yeah, you're going to have to speak up because you won't be able to read otherwise.
Oh. Can you hear me now? Sound like the Verizon commercial.
Java, can you just mute until you need to speak?
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see, I believe we have the fire chief. Is that correct?
Excuse me. I had somebody drop something off for oral communications. I thought they were going to be present,
So what does that mean?
so I'll just distribute it after the meeting. Okay. Thank you.
So let's bring up our fire chief and get an update on what's happening.
But he's actually part of the community wildfire protection
Fire protection.
item, so he's going to speak during that item.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, tonight on the agenda is the adoption of the
Yeah.
city's annex for the community wildfire protection plan, and as part of his presentation on that, he's going to speak as well about overall preparedness and other items and answer questions from the council.
Then, do you have a problem if I move that item from item 8 to item 7 so he can be out of here quicker?
That is up to the city council.
Is that okay with you guys?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll move you up to item 7. Let's see, the consent calendar. Does anybody need to pull anything from the consent calendar, or can we approve the consent calendar? Do I have a motion?
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Okay,
Have a vote?
I don't have the vote thing on my thing.
It'll take a minute.
You showed up?
No.
Oh, okay.
Patience. I'm not patient.
Sometimes it takes a second.
Do you have a voting screen? Okay.
I don't. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have 4 votes in. Councilmember Elahi, how do you vote on the consent calendar?
He's on
He's
mute.
muted.
He's on mute.
He's on mute.
Oh, I vote yes.
Okay, I have all.
You got it?
Yes, I have all votes in. And the consent calendar passes 5-0.
Okay, I see that we have no unfinished business at this time. So let's go to the community wildlife protection, where, can we bring our speaker up now, Terry?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good evening, council members, and the public as well. It's nice to see people here. Steal it from back.
Yes, for the benefit of the person on the phone.
Okay, can you see this?
Speak up.
Okay. Let's see if I can actually. That didn't do it either. There we go. All right, good evening, everybody. Just for the record, my name's John Justice, and I'm the Assistant Fire Chief for Santa Clara County Fire Department, which serves Monte Sereno and 6 other cities, plus a lot of the unincorporated areas of the county. And I am happy to be here tonight to speak about this item, about the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, which abbreviated-wise we call it the CWPP. So this is one of your agenda items, and the staff report that was prepared for you talks under background that California has significant wildfires that have resulted in the loss of life of millions of dollars in property damage, and the cost typically in the United States exceeds $1 billion. And the reason I mention that is more data has come in, so more to talk about that in a minute because I want to update some of that. The purpose of the CWPP, in case you were wondering about that, is protect life, property, and critical infrastructure from wildfire. And also the natural resources that we have around in here. So that includes our, city parks, county parks. How does it do such a thing? CWPPs were created by the federal government as part of the Forest Restoration Act back over a dozen years ago, actually early part of this century. And it has to address in the CWPP policy codes and ordinances, community outreach and education, structural ignitability, emergency response capabilities, evacuation, and fuel reduction projects and programs. And out of those that I named, the policy codes and ordinances really is your purview. Community outreach and education, that is something that I and the fire department do through my community risk reduction program, who does the community education. And you may remember that in this city last year was the first time we rolled out our Ready, Set, Go program, which we did over at Dave's Avenue School. And thank you, Terry, for putting that together. That was wonderful. Structural ignitability, well, that again is something that the rest of the state or country has not caught up with this state. So in this state, in the California Building Code, if you live in an identified wildland-urban interface area, there's certain fire-resistant building standards. The city of Monte Sereno has already identified those areas and has adopted that portion of the California building codes. Emergency response capabilities, of course, I own that pretty much by myself with a few other partners. Evacuation is something that's actually owned by my law enforcement brothers and sisters, but we work diligently with them to be able to identify that. And then the fuel reduction projects and programs are something that's identified by the community and the council, and we put together in the CWPP as far as what are the areas of concern and how might we address them. So that, in a nutshell, really is what the CWPP is, and how it kind of came to fruition and why it's here. What we did do, and we being County Fire, was a couple of years ago embarked on this plan for the purpose of having one CWPP, so one Community Wildfire Protection Plan that encompasses the entire county. There had been 4 of them developed throughout the county, and working with other fire agencies and with the Fire Safe Council becomes very challenging to try to prioritize projects from different communities' needs rather than actually putting them into one document. So that we embarked on that 2 years ago, and we're now in the process of trying to get all of the communities to adopt it. So far, Palo Alto has, Saratoga has, Cupertino's in the process. You're doing this tonight. I was contacted last week by San Jose. Morgan Hill is in process, particularly after this last year's wildfire season. It has become, again, a big topic of discussion, and rightfully so. So besides the CWPP, I want to talk a little bit about some of the other concerns that we have. This is something that came up through a lot of questions from some of the other cities that I serve. And so put together a little program that's tailored to Monte Sereno, but really addresses everybody that I serve. And so as you look at this slide, what I want you to get out of that is last year, and this is just California, over 20,000 structures were destroyed. That's sizable. 1.9 million acres were burned and 98 people were killed. I can tell you that from California's standpoint, this, again, on the heels of 2017, repeated itself as having the largest acreage fire, the largest loss of life, and the most destruction as far as structures lost. Back-to-back years are the worst ever. And not the worst ever just by a little bit. I mean, we're beginning to see records fall every year catastrophically. County Fire, I mentioned that we own the response side of things, and so we do have a concern. We have kind of become a wildfire, department over the last 10 years. We are very big players in the California mutual aid system. Last year, our own strike team, so we have 5 Type 3 engines, which are the somewhat smaller engines, and a strike team leader that goes out with it. We deployed to 7 major incidents, including the Mendocino complex and also the Camp Fire and other fires as well. The overhead assignments that it mentions is we staff overhead positions, whether it's in camp or out in the field, besides the fire engines. And it is something that is a big deal to us because what we learn we bring back here to fight fires in this county. So in your staff report, which was from me, so it's my fault, a little bit dated, and it says in here that we've seen fires that resulted in loss of life and millions of dollars in property damages an average year, and it has been. This year, the property damage was $3.5 billion, which is, I don't know, I didn't do the math. I don't know how many times that is, but that is dwarfs what we typically had seen. In the United States, typically, and this has been true up until a couple of years ago, in the United States, typically $1 billion a year to suppress these fires. In California, last year was $1.8 billion, just California. People are beginning to ask, can that happen here? And I unfortunately need to tell you that, well, yes, it can. So the wildfire, the problem that we have, fuel, weather, and the wildland-urban interface that's what the wildfire problem is. Why is it destructive? Because it's our homes. It's bad enough if it's our natural resources and our forests, in our parks and such, but it's our people's homes. Why is that happening? Our fuel, well, we have a lot of fuel here, and you have a lot of fuel in your own community, particularly as you head up toward, across Highway 9 and up into the mountain. Hotter and drier weather that we've had, yes. Our weather has changed from what it was even 20 years ago. So we're seeing it hotter, drier, wind events. So we've always had some wind events, but our wind events now are much drier and hotter, which feeds the fires. The complex land ownership management. So it's one thing that you all have parcels in places, but it's also we have Mid-Penn is up and around our mountainsides near your area, the county parks, the county open space. There's a lot of big land holders who own chunks and swaths of land that is heavily vegetated. Each one of the communities we deal with is slightly different than the others. And one thing that I want to make sure to bring home here is that the wildland fire problem that we see isn't really a state problem. It's not a federal problem. It's a local problem because it's the local conditions that are driving the fires. What I mean by that is Monte Sereno, as well as all of the other communities that we serve, you have your general plans, you have your zoning requirements, and you have other concerns that are local as far as what type of land use you have, and your land use is partial to what does cause issues when the wildland-urban interface. This next slide I'm going to show you is here's the fuel that I'm referring to. So on the slide you'll see some of the big dark green, which is big open space tracts of land. And you can see your city of Monte Sereno right down there, which is not very far away. So your homes are really butt right up into. There's a little bit of a county buffer space, but the residents basically cruise right up into the vegetated forest land. Whether a fire starts at somebody's home, which does happen, and goes into the wildland or vice versa, it works both ways, and both are at risk from each other. Give you a little baseline on some weather. So this slide right here is baseline of 1951 to 1980. Just kind of take it in for a moment, and you'll see that the lighter the color is, the less of a concern it was as far as weather was concerned. You get down into the suburban areas, and then with more asphalt and such things in homes, it gets a little warmer, and plus you're out of the forest. Fuel modeling nowadays, so this one here is from a model that was put together 2010, 2009, 10 to reflect 2010 to 2030. This model was done a number of years ago, but what it is doing, if I toggle back to this, is you can see that it's getting darker in color. And why are you seeing that? Temperatures have been and are forecasted to continue to warm up. This slide here is the more conservative of the models they put together. So how it's playing out, I think it's actually even probably a little worse than that slide actually depicts. Again, the darker the color you see, the more at risk things are. It's more heat. And what does that hot weather do is actually it causes the vegetation to dry out more and put it into stress. And when vegetation is dry and stressed, it's more apt to combust. And when it does that, it also, when it's dry like that, burns at a faster rate. Monte Sereno's wildland-urban interface, the reddish portion of it, if I can call it that, does it come out red? Red enough. That is the areas the state of California, when they mapped this a dozen years ago, they're behind on their mapping, said that that's what they consider to be a very high fire hazard severity zone in their mapping. And that's a key reason why it is part of your WUI. Locally, we also included the yellow stuff, working with previous city councils and city managers. That's what we came up with as far as today, what your WUI map looks like. In our standards of cover, we also look at this as this is an identified area for us of concern. It is an area of concern for us as far as our issues. We look at it as there's a lot of homes there. There's a lot of vegetation. The homes, most of them are combustible. There's also, if you really look at your road network in some of these areas, there are a lot of roads that are narrow, windy, steep, and sometimes one way in, one way out. For us, that causes a lot of issues. I mentioned briefly as far as, the emergency response is something that we own. In the last 5 years, I'll say that everything you see on here is new equipment that we've attained to deal with the wildland issues here in our county, and particularly in the communities we serve. So if you're not real familiar with us, when it comes to the 911 response areas, we cover from Santa Cruz County down by the Summit store, which is actually in Santa Cruz County, but the next street over, Loma Prieta, we cover from about the Summit store all the way up to Palo Alto along Highway 35. And then down into the valley floor, and we encompass Los Altos Hills, Los Altos, Cupertino, Saratoga, Monte Sereno, Los Gatos, Campbell, and all of the Lexington Basin that's in between. So for us, we have increased our capabilities just with pickups to get people to places we may need them to be. We also took delivery a few months ago, and we actually deployed them to the Camp Fire in Butte County up in Paradise. That was their first action. We have 6 brand new Type 3 4-wheel drive engines to go out and do things, and they worked wonderful. We also, a year and a half ago, took delivery of 3 new Type 6s, which are very large Ford pickups, Raptors, I think they call them. They don't have all of the capabilities, but they can get to places the other engines can't do that. Just this month, we took delivery of 4 new command vehicles. And we have, these are not new, we maintain 2 RAWs, remote automated weather stations, to help guide what our response is on any given day from a burn index component. We also, 3 years ago, took delivery of a new water tender, which we did not have before, but because we have the Lexington Basin and places beyond, not all of them have a nice water supply like you do here in Monte Sereno. So going back to the wildland, the actual problem, how do we address it and what do we do with it locally? Reduce our fuel loading, and that's something that I want to see addressed in the CWPP. The CWPP is what it is right now, your annex. It does need to be updated, even though it really hasn't been put to use as of yet. It is a living, breathing document, and as I go through all of the communities, I want to have a community-specific workshop to deal with updating it and getting your community input on what their concerns are and possible solutions. Somebody is asking other communities as far as what does that do for the city? What's the city on the hook for? Well, actually, nothing, because they're recommendations. What I'm trying to do is partner up with the state of California, and I have with the feds in the past, to try to find grant streams to fix some of it. Some of the concerns that communities have are the narrow roadways or the dead ends. Really tough to fix that. But the other ways to do mitigation for that is to actually do shaded fuel breaks and other such things where you reduce the fuel alongside the road so that you can actually make it safe to travel on. Having it safe to travel on is both good for the citizens and also for us when we're out there working off of it. So fuel reduction is one of them. Better fire behavior modeling, and that is something that we're taking ownership of. So we do have GIS in this day and age for us. It's still probably one of my Achilles heels because I don't think I have enough bandwidth to really do all that I want with my GIS specialist. So I have somebody full-time in the office working on GIS for us. I've also expanded it to actually one of the overhead positions I have is I have a fire captain who is also a GIS specialist who goes out in the field to support the overhead teams on these fires to do their mapping for them. But I need to bring it here and to take data that is available, or I have to create it, so that I can actually do better fuel modeling as far as fire behavior. What would a fire do on a given day, in this case Monte Sereno? I can pinpoint any place I want to put an ignition, given the temperature, given the weather, as far as temperature, fuel moistures, winds, where it is, and the slope and such, try to model fires so I can best figure out the way to do some mitigation projects. Homeowner education. Last year, it kicked off a new program for us, the Ready, Set, Go program that we really are trying to dive into specifically to the homeowners as far as they're the ones that have the skin in the game. When you have fires such as we've had the last few years and you're wondering what happened in the first few hours and the first half day, there are not enough fire resources in anybody's community to deal with fires that move with that kind of rate of spread. That is where the homeowners come into being as far as what can they do to actually reduce the risk of their home being burnt down. Part of the Ready, Set, Go, the ready part is what is the homeowner's component as far as dealing with their property. Property hygiene, I call it, but also potentially hardening their home from the risk of ember intrusion. It's embers that is burning down the houses, not usually direct flame contacts, not a wall of fire. It's the ember cast that comes in, finds a fine fuel bed in and around your combustible house and becomes, a small little fire, and because there's no resources, burns down. And it'll take down entire neighborhoods and communities. Somebody said in this first quote here, the state must increase fuel reduction efforts 10 times is currently being treated. That was in 2014. And I can dare say that this person now is probably saying 10 times isn't nearly enough. So CAL FIRE realizes it, the Governor Brown had realized it, working diligently to find ways to put programs together into local government's hand to try to grapple with this, because the state can't do it. It really is a local problem. We have been partnering up or attempting to partner up with county parks, county open space, Mid-Penn, and some of the other cities as far as to try to find mitigation projects within their cities. And why? For fuel reduction. So some of the stuff we've done in the last couple of years with CAL FIRE and the Fire Safe Council is to try to find areas where we can actually work off of ridges and other places along the ridge tops to try to box in fires so that we have a fuel break, in other words. But we don't drop a blade and have a bare dirt 20-foot wide swath. It's really doing fuel reduction. The weather concerns that we have, well, we're continuing to use the various data sources we get as far as weather. Weather has been a huge concern to us because it has been hotter, it's been drier. You may have noticed here the marine influence isn't what it used to be coming from the Monterey Bay. We used to feel it a little bit here, and we really don't feel it much when the breeze is coming from that direction. The parcel level application, As I mentioned, it's kind of a homeowner thing. What has a homeowner done to try to protect their structure from burning down? What have they done to prepare, ready, set, go? What's their plan in case they have to leave in a hurry? What have they done to prepare for that? When we get into the evacuation issues, the biggest issues when it comes to evacuation from a perspective of thought process is when it really is timed, I got to go right now. That's not a logical thought process. If you haven't actually planned for it and exercised for it, your body kind of goes into a fight or flight, and any rules you thought applied to anything are gone. And that's why evacuation in really critical situations goes bad so quickly. It is chaos. It's chaos for people to get out, and it's difficult for us to get in. Red flag conditions. The major fires we've had in the last few years have all occurred in California during red flag conditions. Santa Clara County have red flag conditions? Yes, we do. Fortunately for Monte Sereno, the vast majority of red flag warnings that we get issued happen about 1,000 feet and above elevation-wise. However, if the winds are coming this way, it just means it's going to blow it into your town. So red flag is still something that Monte Sereno needs to be aware of, but the red flag warning that the Weather Service puts out is really, in this county, is generally 1,000 feet and higher. We want to work that into our ready, set, go, that in the past, our red flag, and what did we tell people when it was red flag? If you're going to do any yard work with power tools, do it in the morning. Make sure you're not using things that'll spark. And a couple of months ago, I told staff that that's not going to work. Red flag warning nowadays means you better be ready for the ready set. That's telling you to get set. If you're an elderly person and you need assistance, and we get warnings usually several days in advance, maybe that's the time you better plan on that day to go visit family, friends out of the area so you can get out with your meds. If you have pets, that you're ready to take care of them. If you have large animals, that you're already moving them. You still need the ignition, but if you wait for the ignition on the red flag day and you have large animals and other such things, it's going to be chaos. So what else are we doing? I mentioned GIS. I'm looking at a simulator Thursday again for, what can I do for planning tools? Because I want to be able to simulate things the best I can to see what kind of, using data, fuel mitigation projects, what does that do to a potential fire, in this case in Monte Sereno? We do have fire detection cameras that are in partnership. We have some up at Mount Umanum, Mount Hamilton, and in the Aldercroft Heights area they do rotate around to give us an idea. They do have to be monitored by humans, and that's done down in CAL FIRE's Emergency Command Center in Morgan Hill. The developed areas, what are my concerns about the developed areas? Some places where they have roads, and Monte Sereno, they're not that far removed, although they are one way in and out sometimes. Establishing what we call TRAs, temporary refuge areas. Find an area in neighborhoods that have enough clearing and clear space around them, such as school sites, certain parks, where there's enough space around them that your residents could feel comfortable in a dire emergency to actually show up there and actually be far enough away from the heat to survive. That's not what I want to see people do, is plan their primary evacuation point, but I do want to see that if you can't get out, where's the place that you can be? That is something I want to talk about when we do CWPP workshops. The wild urban interface pre-plans. We have one that we've developed that is the Redwood Estates, West Lexington, and it does include Monte Sereno in it as well. We've done these. This is a third one we've done. We do them with CAL FIRE. We started on the eastern portion of our district, the Lexington Basin, which is really down in Morgan Hill, and we're moving across the county, the Santa Cruz Mountains, and now we're actually tackling Saratoga at this point in time. What else? I do want to tell you that CWPP, some people bring this up, particularly planners, emergency planners. All of you are probably aware of that you have to have a general plan, and in your general plan you have a safety element. And in your safety element, if your community is at risk to wildfire, you have to address it. The same thing, you have to have a local hazard mitigation plan. And if you have to deal with wildfire in your community, you need to address wildfire issues. The CWPP annex is something for both of those documents. You point to your CWPP, which hopefully gets a lot of community input. When I did the CWPP originally, I broke the county into 4 geographical areas. The western portion, which includes Monte Sereno, they had an option. They could either go to Cupertino, so we hosted meetings in Cupertino, or up into Redwood Estates at the Pavilion. Cupertino was fairly well attended. Up in Redwood Estates, it was standing room only. The further up you get up the mountain, the more heightened the awareness is of the concerns of wildfire. I think after the last couple of years, I would imagine a lot of your residents here are concerned about wildfire. I think I've already talked about that. Our next workshops for the Ready, Set, Go, I think these are locked down. April 10th and May 8th, both of them at the JCC over on Oka Road off of Lark Avenue. We've held community meetings there in the past, and that's a pretty large venue, and we can handle pretty much everybody in. What did we have last? We had, I counted close to 50 when we did the last one.
Yep.
And if I remember correctly, was that before the campfire?
It was.
Yeah. So you may have more interest this time around. Our Ready, Set, Go brochure, which I will leave here, it's still very, very current. Tells homeowners what they should be doing, and hopefully it encourages them to attend one of the workshops. If you have residents that can't attend the one that's going to be over, the ones that will be at Oka Road, we're also doing them at least 2 across all of our jurisdictions. And if there's still a high demand, we'll continue to do them. Contacts that you have for Monte Sereno, the fire chief is Tony Bowden. He's available. Obviously, I am. The Monte Sereno community liaison right now, you've had Deputy Chief Darren Pashota for a number of years. He retired in December, and currently that's Jason Filarski at the moment. Our public information officer, Captain Bill Murphy, you did attend the Ready, Set, Go workshop at the Daves Avenue School. Captain Murphy was one of the presenters. In fire prevention concerns, Mac Balla has been a DFM with us for, I think close to 15 years, and he's handling Monte Sereno currently. And if you have any questions for me at all, feel free to ask away.
Thank you. Let's bring this back to council for any questions. Do you have any questions? Yeah, a question if no one else does.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious. You have all these vehicles. What do they do when they're not fighting fires?
Well, so on a daily basis, if they're not out in the someplace, so not only do they fight fires with them, they also, that's their one vehicle to get around when they go do community events, when they do fire inspections, go to schools to teach. That's just their piece of equipment that they drive around in, but that's mainly the type 1s that you see, the bigger ones. The type 3s and 6s, they are in the fire stations ready for action. And what I mean by that is when there's an incident, so the campfire, when the campfire started, all of my resources were here in their stations doing whatever, well, maybe out in the field, but just doing what they do. When the request came in from the state that we want that strike team deployed, it's a matter of, okay, I can deploy that. Firefighters that are in the various stations where those are housed, so not all 8 of them, but 5 of those engines, we put a staff of 4 on each one of them from the fire stations, and they get sent off, within 30 minutes off to where they go. We then call back other firefighters to staff the other rigs. And so we lose the capabilities here for a short bit of time while we reload the existing staffing that's here for our day-to-day operations. But those engines, when they go out, I still have full staffing and full equipment here as well. When I send out that strike team, that's 22 people. I have 66 people on duty at any given point in time, unless there's a higher staffing demand for weather conditions and such. Out of that, I usually try to not send out any more than 27, 28 people. but because I'm part of FEMA's California Task Force 3, Urban Search and Rescue, sometimes, and this happened this year, I've had people out on Task Force 3, people up at the campfire, and so it becomes somewhat of a stretch, but because that's 66, on a particular shift I have 3 platoons, which means I can cover it, just means people are going to work more hours. So yeah, we make it work.
Council Member Turner?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment here. This past season, we have a home in Oregon, and the fires from Shasta moved over to Oregon. The fires came a mile to our house, so we had to evacuate. And I was just noticing your equipment here. I think one of the reasons our house didn't burn and none of the structures in Grants Pass actually burned was because of aerial equipment, like helicopters and drones. So I was wondering, are we missing some equipment that we really need?
That's an excellent question, and here's how I'll answer it. I gave you the resources that we have, so when there is an incident here, a wildfire incident in our jurisdiction, I'll put it right here in Monte Sereno. So what you get with that, and I'll call it a vegetation fire. Right out of the gate, you get 4 Type 1 engines, those are the big ones, 2 of the Type 3 or 6s, whichever ones are closest, a water tender, 2 battalion chiefs, and a safety officer. If you're on the south side of Highway 9, and it probably really won't matter much anyway if it's not, CAL FIRE, the unit here, the Santa Clara unit, which really covers Santa Clara County, Alameda County, Contra Costa County, and half, we'll call it the western side of Stanislaus County, they will send equipment here also, because even though the city of Monte Sereno is in my fire district, and my fire district goes all the way up to the summit, everything that's outside the incorporated cities, coming down from the Santa Cruz Mountains, is in the state responsibility area for watershed. So that ends up being a mutual threat zone. And so what happens is CAL FIRE is also going to be responding. And they're going to respond with one air attack, which coordinates up in the air the aircraft that'll show up. So you get 2 air tankers, 1 helicopter, 2 bulldozers, 2 hand crews, and 8 engines that come as well. And so that's the resources that we have. I used to say we're resource rich. In this day and age, I'm afraid to say that anymore because of the way the fires have really taken off so fast. I don't think there's enough anywhere. But the amount of resources that show up, including the aircraft, is pretty good. The helicopter is here by Lexington. The other aircraft, the 2 fixed wing, come out of Hollister, so everything's not that far away.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever get a chance to read the grand jury report on the county fire department? It's really interesting. It's worth reading.
What date was that?
It was about 4 or 5 years ago. Kirsten, do you remember that? It was about a few years ago.
Yeah, it was a couple years
But it's worth reading because it's talking about the resources and how the resources should be.
I do remember that LAFCO did a study on consolidating some of the fire districts.
Yeah, it's worth the read. But is there any questions from Gary?
No, there are no questions, but I just wanted to add that, as a city manager, I feel that this is an important piece of adding to our toolkit for preparedness in general. And just also to let you know that we, I've had discussions. I'm not sure it's with everyone, but I think I've mentioned it to everyone that, there's the idea of potentially putting together an ad hoc subcommittee related to, and I'm going to call it emergency preparedness because it is more than just wildfire, and that will be coming to the council's next agenda to have a discussion on creating that, with the idea that it would allow some interface with, a couple of the council members, with all the work that staff is doing, including things like, I think I've mentioned to most of you, staff is meeting one of our residents, the assistant town manager in Los Gatos, and myself, we're going over to Los Altos to meet with their emergency manager to talk about what they're call their block action teams. And this is as I mentioned to you, an important piece I think that's missing, and that's that interface with the community and residents, and having a little more, having the residents be more involved in helping us overall with emergency preparedness. So, just to give you a heads up that is coming on the next agenda, and but of course tonight we are here to ask that you consider the community wildfire protection plan and formally adopting it, so that we then take. I'm not sure it means that we have. Can you please explain to me our adopting it and what that effectuates in essence?
The key reason that I want the city of Monte Sereno to adopt it is that it becomes a tool to allow me to go out and actually do projects that are identified in there, because much of what the CWPP usually identifies is community education and mitigation projects, and that's stuff that's in my world. Why do I want to be able to do that? Because I'm also going to chase down potential grant funding streams. And the first thing on any grant when you look at wildfire concerns is the city or county or whatever, is the jurisdiction adopted to CWPP? And if they say no, done. Go on to the next applicant. So it's a huge asset for me to have a community adopt the CWPP.
We're looking into it. Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. John, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, John, thank you for your presentation. I was looking at your recommendations for public outreach, and I was just curious. I know you've done some of the educational preparedness workshop. You had one recommendation on developing a local newspaper. Any progress on that at all? This is MSE 04.1.
Let me.
This is the one on develop a local newspaper column or community newsletter for Monte Sereno community. And actually, that really falls more within the city's jurisdiction. That was one I had identified that was actually something that we would work on. Unfortunately, as I'm not sure if the fire department's aware, but I think most folks are aware, our local newspaper has really, unfortunately, lost almost all of the ability for us to use it as a tool for disseminating information. On occasion, I have gotten them to publish things, and they do have a calendar and stuff, but I think this might be more appropriate because it does also talk about a newsletter and announcing through the newsletter, which we do have budget, and we're actually working on our winter-spring edition right now. So we certainly will include all the types of information that would be useful to the public and or links to additional bits of information in any newspaper publication. And we'll still continue to reach out to the local paper to see if we can get them to put things that would be useful into the paper itself.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's good. I think that's an important consideration to look into. One other thing I saw in your recommendation was to have some kind of a LiDAR system and hyperspectral imagery for aerial photography. How's that coming along?
We've been talking with the county and other partners as far as the county already does, and some of the other partners already do, either pay somebody to fly or have access to the data from companies who have flown the area with LiDAR and say, this is the particular items that we're looking for. One of the things that's been of concern so far in the last year or so has been, I do want to know, identify the wood shake roofs. I do want to be able to identify certain property characteristics. With the heavy tree canopy, it doesn't work very well, which was a surprise to me, but.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, whatever data you can get will help you prepare for that. Excellent. That's all the questions I have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, without any further questions, really appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
We're very happy to have the department working for us. Seriously. Anybody else?
So we do have for you tonight a resolution
Yeah,
to approve the plan?
I
Okay.
was going to get to that
Okay,
next.
so I just wanted to make sure.
They're protecting me, so I don't screw this up. It's my first night as mayor, so trying to do the best I can. Okay, let's go into that then. The staff report and resolution.
Did we have any requests to speak from the public? No.
I didn't see any. I didn't see any blue papers.
Just double checking.
If anybody does want to speak, all you have to do is fill out a blue paper. But if not, we can move on. Staff?
So you do have before you, So you do have before you the resolution. So we would just need a motion to approve the resolution, which
Yeah,
in turn approves
can
the
I
report.
just maybe interject a little bit on the resolution? If you can add a paragraph that the staff should look at setting up the emergency preparedness committee as part of that resolution that we have, and then that would, as an add-on to that resolution.
So because creating a new subcommittee was not on the agenda, we will be bringing that forward to you at the next council meeting.
Okay, you're doing it anyway, but I just
Yes.
thought I'd make it part of the resolution.
Terry and I discussed that, and I think we should bring it on the next agenda,
It is, yeah.
please. Okay, so are there any questions on the Community Wildlife Protection Plan? Are there any questions from the audience on the Community Wildlife Protection Plan? If not, let's take it to a vote.
Well, I guess I did.
Oh, sorry, Sean.
Okay. If I may, I noticed in the staff report, it says fiscal impact, none in adopting the plan. By adopting the plan, are we committing ourselves to doing the things that are in these various recommendations and goals, the 1 year, the 2 year, these things? And if we are committing to that, doesn't that actually include a fiscal impact?
It does, and I identified all the ones that affected us directly, and I transmitted that to the city council. And looking at them, I don't think there's anything in there that we wouldn't absorb into what we already have in terms of staffing, and the effort and that would be needed. So that was why I didn't feel that there was, if we didn't go beyond this, there's no fiscal impact.
Okay, thank you.
So should I read the resolution?
So you just need a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, I won't read it then. I won't bore you guys. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
A second. Let's see if I can get it on the voting thing again.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Elahi and a second by Vice Mayor Turner.
I don't see my thing again. Okay.
Okay, 2 votes, 3 votes are in. Okay, I have 4 votes in. Councilmember Elahi, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, I have all 5 votes in. There you go. It passes 5-0.
Okay, perfect, guys. Let's move on. Let's move back to,
I'm sorry, I need to do a roll call.
oh, I'm sorry.
So, Councilmember Elahi,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Councilmember Luthold,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Turner,
Yes.
and Mayor Rogers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I
Passes
ask you,
5-0.
why did you have to do a roll call?
Because we have a council member that is participating remotely.
Okay.
I-
Okay, I'm learning something new every day. Let's go to the Better Streets Commission appointments.
I think
missed
the
it.
next
Weed
item was number 6, weed abatement.
Oh, I'm sorry. Unfinished business, weed
Public
abatement. Thank you.
Okay.
Staff report, please.
Do you want me to do this? Actually, this is our weed abatement. It's an annual program. I believe we have somebody, are you with the weed abatement program? I am. Okay, we have a gentleman here from the weed abatement program that could explain this.
Right.
It is an assessment. The notices have been sent out to the homeowners to abate their property within a certain amount of time. Is it April 1st, I believe?
Actually, if you
Yeah,
don't
if
mind
you
coming
could.
up, because we actually have 3 new council people that have never been through this before.
would you
We'd
like
really
to-
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Brian. I'm with the Santa Clara County Weed Abatement Program. This is a commencement hearing, essentially. All of this jurisdiction, I believe, has 11 participants in our program. All of them have been legally notified with our notification process. Includes mailing out to the parcel owners a packet of information, just stating that's the standards and the deadlines that are required to be in compliance with the program. And if there's anything else?
Could you just tell us a little bit about what the overall goal of the program is and why we have it?
Sure. So the overall goal of the program is to be compliant with the minimum fire safety standards. Basically, we want to see 30 feet of clearance around all structures, 30 feet of clearance around parcel boundaries, and 10 feet of clearance on all roadsides and driveways. We enforce these standards from a public right-of-way, and we make sure that they're met from, in this jurisdiction, I believe the inspection window runs from April 30th to October 30th. Different jurisdictions vary. San Jose, we begin inspecting March 1st. Down in Gilroy, we start inspecting May 15th. So it varies throughout jurisdiction, throughout the county. 6 inches or less with a vegetation growth, mainly looking for grasses and highly combustible vegetation growth, flash fuels.
Hey,
Any questions?
Any questions?
Wes, I was going to get to that.
No.
Are there any questions of the council?
I do.
Yes, Sean?
So your program is aimed at homeowners and enforcement and sending out these notices to people who need to comply and then following up if they fail to comply. Does your program also cover public lands and right-of-ways? In particular, a lot of concern here about the right-of-way along Highway 9 that does not appear to be being maintained right now. So is your program looking at that for management of those common areas?
Not directly. We enforce the minimum fire safety standards on privately owned parcels. We do offer service requests to the public. So we do follow up with government-owned parcels and make sure that it has the proper attention with that agency. We don't have a direct enforcement mechanism for government agencies. It's more of the privately owned parcels that we're addressing.
Okay, so but if people bring that to your attention, then you bring it to those the government control?
Yeah, for example, with our parks, we have a close relationship with our parks. We make sure that we put our tractors on there, and we're doing a lot of the abatement action with the parks. And sometimes service requests come in about our parklands, and we make sure about that.
Okay, so if the problem is with Caltrans, that's something that we're left to bring that up to their attention, or if people here can bring that to your attention and you can help with that?
Oh, definitely. You can give us a call, contact our program. We'll place a request for Caltrans also online. And if there's a request from our program and also the public, it gets the attention of Caltrans a little bit better.
Just to interject a little bit, so typically, yes, we would take the lead of that as city staff. However, he brought up a good point that the more persons that contact them, it's always better, because then they hear more voices and it can often lead to having action happen more quickly.
Certainly. I agree with that.
Yeah, it just seems strange. We have a mechanism to enforce against individual homeowners. We don't have a mechanism to enforce to other sources of fuel that are problematic for the community.
Yes, that's a big, I hear that often as a concern over the phone lines. And we do our best to address that concern, but with the staff, we have limited staff available for that. Focus mainly on the privately owned parcels.
Okay, are there any more questions? Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, I just had one question. Is the inspection done only after somebody calls it in that there's a weed problem with a neighbor, or do you guys have a way of doing inspections sua sponte or on your own?
Typically, most parcels that are added to our program are added en route of inspecting the current active list. So while we're going from one house to another, we see a parcel out of compliance, we'll go ahead and add that parcel. However, we do respond to service requests, and we respond to requests from fire marshals and also other jurisdictional code enforcements.
Yeah. Do you think it's worth it to have some kind of a periodic checkup on parcels and also on the open area that will not be called because no homeowner lives next to an open area? Would that be feasible, or was that cost is prohibitive to do that?
Are you talking about more surveying the wildland urban interface for more potential concerns?
Yeah, looking at other areas that could be a fire zone or provide fuel to fire. Because if you're only looking at places where people are calling, that may be leaving other areas that should be looked at that nobody calls on, or especially if there's no neighbors close by that call upon it, or if you have a completely open area that obviously has no neighbors. How do we address those fire hazards?
No, that's a great concern, actually. Essentially, chasing down service requests that are non-legitimate when you have real concerns along the WUI that are not being reported. Sorry.
You're right.
Yeah, I could see that. I think more staffing is ultimately the question. I utilized. We just had a presentation for the CWPP. I cited that document, actually, so I'm glad you guys approved that, when trying to get some CAL FIRE granting. Unfortunately, the grant stream wasn't tapped into this time around, but I'll try again next year to connect with that. But essentially increasing in staffing. We have 2.5 people with our program throughout the county, so I would like to see increase in staffing with that.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. Hopefully the Emergency Preparedness Committee or whoever gets involved with that may do it, because, that would be helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just so you all know, we see this on an annual basis. So we're getting used to it. No more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
So we'll take this up for putting it on the next agenda for the vote. Is that how this works?
So it's actually a public hearing.
Yeah.
So you open the public hearing and then I don't think anyone's here. But I believe the resolution needs to be adopted tonight.
Oh, it'll be adopted today. Okay. Then let's get to the voting part.
To open and close the public hearing, though.
I already did. Was there anybody in the public? I've already asked. No.
Okay, so I have Council member, Vice Mayor Turner has made a motion to approve. It's seconded by Council Member Lawler. So you're voting? Okay. Okay, I have 4 votes in. Council Member Elahi?
Yes.
Okay. I have all 5 votes in. And I need a roll call. Okay, so I'm going to do a roll call. Councilmember Elahi?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawler?
Yes.
Councilmember Luthold?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Turner?
Yes.
And Mayor Rogers? Thank you. It passes 5-0.
Okay. Now can we move on to the Better Streets Commission? Okay. Do we have a report from our staff?
Do we do this? Okay. Okay. Mayor and council members, before you have the Better Streets Commission appointments. There are 2 vacancies. We have 3 applicants before you. The term, there are 2 vacancies, and the term would expire December 31st, 2020. So the applicants that you have, I believe all 3 are present. We have Burton Craig, Doreen Nelson, and Joanne Path. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Any.
We just bring them up to,
However you'd like to do it.
okay. I'll just do this in alphabetical order. Burton, would you like to come up and speak?
Hello, Council. Happy New Year. I have come back to apply for the Better Streets and Roads Commission. This was a committee that I had formed, I think about 2 years ago, and it's also been one of my passions during my term on the council. I had many people come and complain about the traffic on our streets, about the condition of our streets, and about the courtesy of our drivers on the streets. And since we've implemented this as a formal committee now, along with the funding that we will hopefully get a little bit of with all of the new taxes that have been in place, I would like to continue on this effort to make our streets a little bit better inside of Monte Sereno. Hopefully we can continue with some of the programs that were started, like the Drive 25 Keep Kids Alive program, and also to improve walkability in our city. I think I see a lot of people every morning when I take my child to school, and it's really great that we live in an area that has the ability to walk from a nice rural area all the way to downtown Los Gatos, and would just like to continue working and helping out wherever I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Burton. Next is Doreen Nelson.
Hello, good evening. Just a little about me because I don't think you know me. I've lived in Monte Sereno for 15 years, but I've lived in the surrounding area as the crow flies, maybe a mile away, as a resident of Los Gatos and Saratoga since the late 80s. So I have actually seen how the growth in our town and communities has impacted our infrastructure. As a recent empty nester, just launched my last child off to college in September, I have a little bit of extra time on my hands. And when I heard about this opportunity, it really resonated with me. And why did it resonate with me? Because I've always been someone who, as I've traveled through cities or states or even other countries, has noticed and taken note of how other places have addressed traffic issues or pedestrian safety or bicycle safety. So it's an area that interests me, although I don't have a formal background per se. Why do I think I would be good in this capacity? I am open-minded. I am eager to learn. I work really well in groups, and I think that my organization and my efficiency and my dedication to doing a good job, no matter what it means or how much time it takes, I'd be willing to do the research because I would really like to give back to this town that I'm privileged enough to call home in this capacity. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much. And we have Joanne Path.
So easy that it's hard. Yeah, it's Beth. Just like
Right.
Beth with a P.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I did it right for a change.
Yeah. Well, you have 3 great candidates, so I think that's wonderful for a city of our size. And that's inspiring, and I think that's really good for me to see that people are willing to get involved. I was on the ad hoc committee that was started in the traffic committee before the one that you have now, and I enjoyed being on that. I enjoy learning. I've lived in the community for quite a while, raised my kids here. Both my parents were born in Los Gatos, so this is the place that we call home and that I really care about. I worked for quite a few years on the Highway 9 project with Saratoga, Los Gatos County, our legislators, everybody, that I could get involved, and we were pretty successful in getting the bicycle lane and the pedestrian path. So I've had some experience working with this. I worked with big data. I did prospect management and research, fundraising, kind of the back end data on it. So I really like looking at things from that viewpoint. In other words, finding out, it's really important to me that everybody that's on these roads, and we definitely have a lot of traffic right now, But whether it's the people in cars, getting where they need to be, pedestrians, the bicyclists, our kids getting to school safely, it's important to me that we do that and we look at it. We find out where our hot spots are, what we can do for solutions, and then we get creative and, think outside the box, figure out where funding can come from, and kind of look at the whole picture more holistically. And I know, you've got great staff support now that can help with that, and you've got new engineering coming, and Terry certainly heard me. He's been really good listening to me. We've had some problems on Highway 9 lately. So I'm really just kind of interested in seeing, from a city standpoint, where I could help with some of the other problems and help look at what the traffic problems are crazy right now. So what we can do to make it safer for everybody out there. Yeah. Thank you.
Is it okay if I ask the council if they have any questions? Questions? This is a good problem when you have three really good candidates, and so it's tough to make a decision, but we do have to make a decision. Should we put this to a
Yeah,
vote?
so I provided each of the council members, and I'm going to get Java's input, Councilmember Alali's input in just a second. But yes, if you would look at the slips that I gave you and indicate on there your two choices. And once you do that, I will come and collect those, and Kirsten and I will add them up and give you the results. And then based on the results, you will officially make the appointments. Yes.
Did you want us to put 1, 2, or check?
1, 2.
Oh, 1, 2.
Okay.
You complicated things. He's going to do it in secret. That was hard. Yeah. 12 seats, we raised it.
And then you skip more.
Never thinking. Would like to collect these. Wonderful city manager. Thank you.
Let's see if we can do this.
Do.
The results are for being recommended to the Better Streets Commission are Doreen Nelson and Joanne Peth. So we just need a motion to appoint those two individuals to the Better Streets Commission effective immediately, right? Be effective immediately.
Okay, I have a motion. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Okay, your voting screen should be up. Okay, I have 4 votes in. Can I go ahead and take the roll call vote? Okay, it's going to be a roll call vote. Councilmember Elahi?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Lawler? Yes. Councilmember Luthold?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Turner?
Yes.
Mayor Rogers?
Yes.
It passes 5-0.
Congratulations to the new members of the Better Streets Commission.
We're good. Okay, let's move on. The next thing on our agenda is going to be the City Council Committee Commissions and Assignments. This has gone through a little bit of a change over the course of the last week. So I hope you've all had a chance to look at the most recent adaptation of the report. I changed it from I sent you guys a couple days ago, and I think you changed it. And over the weekend, I made some more changes.
That is correct. And the version, which everyone should have had a copy, we did email it, is the one that Andrea is holding up.
Correct.
If anyone doesn't have a copy, I have extras over here.
I just real briefly wanted to let you know how this was done. I took the A commissions and the B commissions. I tried to give everybody at least 1 or 2 of what are like the A tickets, the better commissions that meet regularly. Some of them never meet or meet on a very irregular basis. And then I had every one of you rank it from 1 to 5 to 10, and then tried my best to accommodate everybody. Not everybody, it doesn't work completely, but I did the best I can. I would like to know if there's anybody that is not comfortable with what I have proposed here or would like to propose changes to this. I know, Rowena, you had...
I do have something here. I think I'm double booked for Wednesday with the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Authority and the West Valley Sanitation District.
Are they on the same time?
Yes.
Really?
One is at 6 and the other is at 7, so pretty
they-
much the same time.
Are they in the same location?
No.
No. So
Okay.
what I asked
Which
you,
one would you like to change?
what I asked you originally was to keep me on the West Valley Sanitation District. I was the chairman of that district last year, and we have some
still on it.
litigation that we need to resolve. So I would like to give up the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Authority.
Okay. Is there... Council Member Elahi, you're the next up. Would you like to take that commission as the main person?
I'm sorry. This is the Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley
Clean Energy.
second Wednesday of the month. If I don't have anything on Wednesday, I'm okay with that.
Okay, can I ask,
But if somebody else wants it, that's fine too.
any volunteers, or we go with? Okay, let's do it. No, because Councilmember Turner will never be able to make it, so let's ask for a volunteer to be the alternate. Do we have a volunteer as an alternate? I will volunteer. Okay, there you go. With that, I propose that we approve the committee and commission assignments for 2019. Okay? Do we need to make a motion on this? Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
Okay, I have all four votes in. So Councilmember Elahi,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawler,
Yes.
Councilmember Luthold,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Turner,
Yes.
and Mayor Rogers?
Yes.
Okay. So passes 5-0 with that one amendment.
It's life.
Oh, man. Done with that. Happy. Okay, let's move on to committee and commission reports. We'll start with down at the end with Ms. Lawler. Councilmember Lawler, do you have any commissions or committee reports? I think so.
No, I do.
Okay.
Oh, no, the comments. I'll do the comments
Yes,
later.
this isn't comments. This
Yeah,
is-
later.
Okay. Any commission?
Oh, no.
This is regarding the commissions and committees that you may have been to.
I think there was one that was attended.
Does
Well, I
this
think-
include the training that we attended?
No, well,
No. Okay.
we can talk, Terry can talk about that.
Yeah, but,
David,
yeah,
Yes.
Councilperson Elahi definitely went to one, I think, or maybe two.
David, would you
Yeah,
like to give your report?
Sure. I attended the Cities Association meeting, which was an excellent meeting to attend, and I attended because the mayor and the vice mayor were both who were supposed to be the direct representatives were not able to make it, so it was a good opportunity to attend. They have a directors meeting first, where all the different city council people who are on the committee, and that meeting basically was used to fill some vacancies on the board. One vacancy that was filled was on the MTC board, and was contested between John McAllister and Jenny Brune, I think, who was currently serving, and that vote was 7-6, and Jenny got confirmed on that. Monte Sereno voted for John, so we didn't carry it, but that was based on his efforts previously involving the VTA and other issues. There were a couple other elections. What was interesting is there was a couple of vacancies that no one had applied for, and council members from other cities who were there, some of them just volunteered to fill those seats. So that might be a good opportunity if you guys go to one of these meetings and there are vacancies. Be prepared to apply for them if you want to get into those other committees that are part of the city association. So this was at 6 o'clock, 7 p.m. There was a meeting of the city's association, basically to discuss things. The main item that was discussed was CASA, which is the program to build more housing. It's supposedly called affordable housing. And very long, about a 30-minute presentation was given by the CASA rep. They had apparently worked on it for about 18 months or so, and finally said we were done with it and left. A senator or supervisor, Cortese was also present to answer questions. The net result, however, was no one at all, not even one single city council from any city liked the approach. The main concern was that you're saying you're going to build housing, but there's so much congestion going on that the streets are clogged anyway, and this is not going to solve anything. The second main serious concern was that part of the way they're funding the housing development is through taking some money from the cities. And the cities were saying, if you take this money from us, it's going to prevent us from doing things that we think are important. The impression that was left was that this thing still could be changed, but I think most of the city council felt that they'd already worked on it for 18 months, and there's probably not much more give and take on it. So it may go back to the state, and then the state may push it. And I understand that the state meeting that we were at last week, there was also a meeting held by CASA. I was not able to attend that, but the state representative seems to be pretty gung-ho on pushing the housing element or the housing construction on all the cities. One place where the money is going to come from is probably from from employers and from donations. So we'll have to see how that goes. Now, what effect it has on the city of Monte Sereno may not be much. I mean, they may pull some money out of us. Supposedly, they'll give some of it back to the cities. It's not clear whether they'll give it back to the same city or somebody else. So that's what we may have to watch for. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Okay, then seeing no more, let's go to council member comments. Let's start at this side. Javed, do you have any council member comments?
I probably do, but if you can come back to me, let me compose my thoughts.
Okay, Sean?
Yeah, thank you. One comment in particular, I think we're going to address this in the future, is how to deal with future agenda items. And I've discussed that with the city manager, and so we'll look at the proper way to bring that onto the agendas in the future. So that's really the main comment that I have.
Great, thank you, and I think that's a good idea to bring it up to Councilmember Turner.
Yes, I have two comments, actually. The first one is Councilmember Lawler and I have been discussing how to expand the partnership with neighboring cities to prepare for and recover from the fires. So I'm not sure if this needs to be an agenda item, if we need to agendize this, vote on it, or what. But I think I would like to suggest that the council authorize us to meet with other local representatives and interested residents, like the one you're meeting with on Friday, so that we can better understand the coordination that we need with county emergencies. But I think more importantly, we need to look at the role of council members, if any. What should we do when a disaster hits? I remember when I was evacuating in Oregon, and I wasn't holding office. I thought, well, where does my loyalty lie? Should I keep moving my stuff out, or should I run to City Hall? So those are one of the things that I think we should address. Any addition to that, Councilmember? Okay, so the second, yeah.
Just I would say related to that, and that could definitely be part of the discussion when we talk about forming an ad hoc committee at the next council meeting. We'll add that into that.
So the next one is something we did in 2016. We actually set aside some time on a Saturday where we looked at our strategic goals. And I think we should have a 2019 strategic goals. And I kind of listed three that we could work from. One is the mandates that were being imposed from the city, on our city by the state throughout California for the housing element, right? What can we do to give the appropriate input to our residents? And how do we measure whether the input that we've gotten is adequate? The other one, of course, is traffic and public safety. And then really the third one is the city's reserves. We have spent money last year on fixing the roads on Blanchard, so we need some type of fiscal responsibility to make sure that we have enough to keep moving. So those are just three, and I'm sure a lot of our council members here.
Yeah, I've got
can
that
add
on,
on.
I've got that on my notes.
And that will be part of, if you remember from last year, we did a goal-setting session as sort of the beginning part of the budget process. And so we'll be definitely doing that again this year. And because we have 3 new council members, the initial materials I'll send out, will probably contain more than they might normally. And I will be reaching out to each individual council member when we get to that process. It is already on the agenda in March. And so, it's an important part of the city setting its goals and determining from that what work would come out of that, and then determining if any of that requires resources in terms of finances, consultants, staffing, and then that all wraps into the budget process. So hold those thoughts for the moment, and we will be returning to that to have a bigger discussion in March.
Gary, we've always done this in January. March is a third of the year.
That's because we've realigned the goal setting with the fiscal year and the budget.
It feels late to me, but
well, I'm not sure why all other cities align this process with their budget. I don't know why we weren't doing that here before, but of course I can't speak to that. The importance for aligning it with your budget is because out of a goal-setting session and the work that could come out of that, there might be items that need funding, staffing resources, and so it needs to be synced up. And I talked with the previous council about this last year, and we agreed to move it to this. So I think overall it helps us, facilitate the discussion and enact a budget that's attached to the goals. And the current goals we have were adopted as part of the budget, and so they started July the 1st, and they run through the end of June. So we're not, there's no gap, here. It's just we moved the calendar off 6 months basically.
It feels late, and it should be a Saturday morning, in my opinion. But
oh, I'm sorry. You mean in terms of the time that we hold it?
yeah,
Oh, I misunderstood you. I thought you meant in terms of the time that we have the goal-setting session.
no, well,
Oh, okay. Well, it's going to be in March, and we're going to do it, similar to what we did last year. And currently, I was planning on putting on a regular council meeting. We could do as we did last year and start earlier, and that way we would have additional time, if that's satisfactory to everyone.
usually it's Saturday mornings because everybody can make
We
it.
could certainly switch it to a Saturday. We last year we did it before the earlier than a meeting, but we certainly can switch it to a different day.
We'll discuss that.
Absolutely.
Hey, Councilmember Lawler.
Well, I'd like to look into talking with other cities like ours about what they're doing about the state mandated housing and how we can work together with our legislators. I did speak with the city attorney at Rolling Hills, and he thought that was a good idea. So I'd like to pursue that.
Okay. Javed, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I've got a couple of things. One is I was looking at the budget. The investment return seems to be negligible. We have $5 million worth of reserve. If somebody can help me out on why that is not, or maybe it is and I missed it, why we are not getting any interest or something else. I mean, even if you get 1% interest, that's like $50,000 a year. So that, if somebody could help me with that, and
Absolutely.
I don't know if there's some limitations. There must be, I suppose. Otherwise, you guys are smart enough to put it in the right place. Second thing I wanted to disclose, I had contact with. There's a subdivision that's being put up on Saratoga Sunnyvale Road, and one of the neighbors on the subdivision is opposing that subdivision, and he had sent me an email and a call, and I went and personally met him. He also sent me some diagrams.
I'm
as a
sorry,
follow-up.
Councilmember Elahi, that item is agendized at a later agenda, and we cannot discuss that during this meeting.
But I'm making a disclosure as to what has been presented to me. I'm not discussing
And that's fine,
the
but-
plus or minus of it.
And that's
I'm
fine.
just disclosing that somebody talked to me. I think I have a responsibility to disclose
You do.
discussions I've had with everybody.
No, you couldn't be. You couldn't be more correct. But the appropriate time to disclose that would be at the hearing itself, which is not tonight.
Okay, fine. I guess I've done my disclosure then.
Perfect.
One thing I need instructions from you guys. There is a petition that apparently the same group has put on Move On, which has been directly to all of his council members opposing that subdivision. So
David,
if you guys can give us some
that needs to
instruction
wait also.
as to how to. I'm sorry.
That needs to
Yeah,
wait.
so
That is
the
not time.
purpose of, just for future, so the purpose of council member comments is just to update on something you might have done city business-wise that you're not on a committee. So, for example, I just attended the league training in Sacramento, and I did X, Y, and Z. It's not intended as a time to discuss future items or to ask questions. It's just really to provide some comments about things that you might have done since the last council meeting.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm just asking if we need to respond to that petition at this time, or are you suggesting we just wait and not do anything from the legal counsel's point of view?
Yeah,
as to how
so
we handle that?
at this point, we should wait. The subdivision will be coming forward at a future date after the California Environmental Quality Act review has been completed. And at that point, once the council has held a public hearing and heard all of the evidence, at that point would be the appropriate time to make comment.
Okay, sounds good. So the final comment that I want to do is on the budget itself. It's on the consent calendar and it passes through. I noticed there are some variances that are more than 25% from what they're supposed to be. For example, on the secured property tax, it would be good if you can get some information on those particular items that have a variance of, let's say, over 25% and let's say over $1,000, so that we have some handle on why there's a variance compared to what the budgeted amount was.
So let me just speak to a couple of things you brought up. For that, I can certainly work with you and talk with you on an individual basis, but we also there's three parts to the budget process. There's the goal setting session, which sets the goals and the potential goals, and that could potentially include work items which have staffing issues and sometimes consultant, and so then that moves on to the preliminary budget discussion, where staff puts together the preliminary budget, lists all the different things that the city could possibly be working on, what those costs are. And as part of last year's budget discussion, the City Council did direct staff, which we're going to be doing, to look at the city's investment policy. Because currently we have a very conservative investment policy. And yes, it is true, the city investments which we use are very safe investments and they do not give a high return. But that's a discussion that we will have as part of the overall budget discussion. But as always, if you have questions about the budget or any particular items, you're certainly welcome to call me at any time.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I think it'd be easier if, as a policy, anytime you have a variance over 25% on any item, because you already have a budget and you have expenses, you just give us a small paragraph explanation as to why there's a variance and what is involved. So we don't have to ask you specific questions, but or we don't have to pull the item out and then ask you about it.
Right. It's just that in this particular forum for council member comments, it's not something that I can really address in any sort of meaningful way. But I will also let the council know, if you would have seen from the upcoming 3-month agenda, we also have what we have is called the mid-year budget report, and there'll be a lot of good information in there about where we stand mid-year, and that's a great opportunity for you also as council to ask questions.
All right, so the next budget that you are going to do and present the expenses, can I ask you to give me that information on any item that has a 25% variance?
So at this time, you cannot, because it's not on the agenda. So the best thing to do would be to meet with the city manager outside of the meeting, and then that item could come forward for council consideration in the future if necessary.
So my way of finding out would then be just to pull the budget from the agenda and then specifically ask you guys at that time.
Maybe it's a misunderstanding of what you're talking about. Are you talking about the city's adopted yearly budget, or are you talking about something on the agenda?
No, I'm not talking about your expenses. I'm talking about your revenue and expenses that show up every month, your warrant list.
My apologies. I sincerely apologize. I thought this entire time you were talking about the city's budget. All right.
No, I'm just talking about items that are expensed that show a variance from the previous budget of more than 25%. I thought it'd be good for us to get some details on that.
Yeah, let's you and I start with a conversation first, and then we'll take it from there, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, can I inject something before? I've got just a paragraph that I wrote. You guys, this is for the council. So I'm going to wait for everybody to pay attention on this. This is a message to our current council members. Okay, and it's short. We are here to work for the city of Monte Sereno. Our goals are all the same: to do what we believe is best for the community we live in and the community that we all love. We are currently living in a country where divisiveness seems to be the norm and not the exception. I implore all council members to be civil to each other, knowing that we won't always agree but that we are public servants elected by our constituents. Let's work to make this a good year, one that we can look back on and say we are proud because we did the best work possible for the city and the citizens. Thank you, guys. I'm very sincere about this. Let's work together. This is our chance to make a difference in this community for the betterment of our community. Let's do it. And then one other thing I wanted to ask you is, when are we going to sign the ethics report that was written a few years ago?
You approved it tonight.
You approved it tonight.
Is that in the envelope?
Yes, it's right there.
We all have to sign this, you guys, and that goes up in the front hall. And that's all I had to say.
City manager's report.
City manager's report?
The only thing I was going to say is I just wanted to, again, for the audience and anyone who may be listening, and I thought it was amazing. All 5 of the city's council members, as well as myself, attended a 3-day training session on new city council members and new mayors in Sacramento this past week. And I know how busy everyone is, and I know, how difficult it can be to take time out. But I do think it shows a real commitment to our community on the part of the city council that everyone went and did that. And I want to sincerely thank you for coming with me and sitting in those rather uncomfortable chairs for all day for 2.5 days. I really thank you for that.
Thank you for showing up also, Terry. That was really important.
Those were miserable chairs.
Okay, if there is nothing else, I am going to